Hi, and welcome to the Tattoo Teacher podcast, where we get to know the person behind the professional, going below the surface of what we see. Join with me as I talk with some incredible individuals from around Australia and the world. I hope you enjoy this great conversation I had with Megan Detering. Well, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good ever, what time of day it is that you happen to be listening to the Tattoo Teacher podcast. On today's episode, I have Megan Detering. She is an amazing design and technology STEM teacher. She's had quite a journey to get to this point. She was a car designer, automotive designer for a number of companies in France. She has been an industrial designer in both product design and architectural design. She's lectured at the University of Canberra in design. You've been a product project manager for urban infrastructure in Canberra. You've taught at Canberra Grammar School. You are now a teacher of STEM and design and technology at Canberra Girls Grammar. I'm not going to try and pronounce these institutions, but you hold a higher technician certificate in industrial design. You have an advanced qualification in product design, majoring in industrial and product design. You have a master's in automotive design, and you also now have your graduate certificate in secondary education and teaching from the Australian Catholic University.
Sorry.
Megan, how do you find the time? And welcome to the Tattoo Teacher podcast.
Thank you so much, Phil. Where do I find the time? I guess it's like everyone, right? We just make it work. We fit it in.
We do.
Micro tasks is the key for me. It's doing a little bit. That's something I really learned on the late. I used to be a perfectionist.
Yep.
And that used to stop me actually from being really, really efficient and learning new skills. And I completely changed my ways, and I've learned that what's most important is regularity and learning a tiny, tiny bit each day. And so I've applied this strategy for the past few years, and it's really helped me to actually make a little bit of time on a range of topics that I'm interested in. And it takes time, but ultimately you learn the skills, you get better and better and better. And without even really noticing, because it doesn't feel like a massive task that you have to accomplish and get perfect, get right from the get-go. And so, yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like already, if anyone decides to turn off now, they've got a fantastic piece of advice that to take things a little bit at a time so you are not overwhelmed. It's like that old joke, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So,
That's right.
just
that
that little
I
bit.
have that.
Well, looking at your very brief bio, absolutely, you have done quite a lot in a short space of time, and then also moving countries. I mentioned that you're an automotive designer over in France. So you've come across. You're now teaching in Australia, and we can all hear your accent. So I guess that must have been a challenge as well.
Yes, like many of us in Australia, it's we have gone through stuff, and I suppose I am very grateful that I am here. You have multiple reasons for which you decide one day to move to another country. I was not supposed to stay here forever. I was supposed to go back, but ultimately I found my peace and my happiness here. So, but yes, it was definitely very challenging. It taught me a lot, and far more than I expected it would. It's really interesting actually to be thrown in the deep end, to be thrown into the opposite side of the coin, where I used to be a Parisian, very familiar with Paris, and in my element, and I'd see a lot of tourists and a lot of people with foreign accents, and then all of a sudden you find yourself being the foreign person, and you find yourself having trouble communicating. and you find yourself having to prove yourself even more because of that stupid accent that follows you everywhere. uh, so it's really interesting, and I'm going to do my best to push my children to go and live overseas, and even if it's just for a year or two, to actually get a sense of. I suppose it resets, it shifts the post completely. Everything is shifted. You no longer have your comfort zone to work with. You're thrown in the deep end, and so that's really interesting.
Yeah, oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So, behind all of this, one question I love to ask my guests is, what is your why? So, why have you done all these things? What's your drive? What are some of the personal, professional motivations that are behind a complete career change, but also a complete culture change?
Look, I think like many of us teachers, I've had a fantastic teacher who I am still friends with on social media, and he took my. I was 10 years old or 11 years old, and we were a class from Paris learning English, but we only had probably an hour and a half of English as a second language a week, and he decided to take the whole class to Chicago. And so we all went for 3 weeks to
Wow.
Chicago on exchange, and each and every one of us was placed in a family, a host family, and this triggered a number of things for me. First, I discovered what it is to grow up in a happy family, because my childhood wasn't that good, as I discovered that my family life was quite dysfunctional. Second thing is that I discovered skyscrapers and limousines, and that trick. I was already, drawing a lot in my notebooks in class and in lessons, but seeing skyscrapers and coming from Paris, where everything's at the same level, and all of a sudden being thrown in the middle of Chicago with skyscrapers, big cars, limousines, and that really triggered my interest, and so much that I would stop the group to take photos of limousines every time I saw one. So that fantastic teacher booked a limousine for a morning, and the limousine was parked at the front of the American college where we were going during the day, and that really triggered my passion for cars. And I wasn't really that knowledgeable about cars, but that really triggered what would become my passion for design, industrial design, and
That's
architecture and art. And we went to great museums there as well. So both having that awesome teacher that totally took care of me. And I've communicated with him years later, 20 years after. He still remembers me, and he really looked after me, and he did things for me on the side that, little things that actually changed my life. So coming back to Paris, I decided I would focus on art and design, and moving to Australia was the culmination of learning English seriously, because I thought, whoa, because I also had a crush on that little boy Jeremiah in Chicago, who was one of the host kids there. So I thought, all right, I need to learn English seriously when I come back. I want to become a designer or an architect, and I would like to come back to maybe marry that little Jeremiah one day. And that teacher also kind of gave me the passion for teaching. And so, 20 years later, I migrated to Australia. I made improvements with my English, and I also ended up teaching design, which is absolutely awesome.
What an amazing story! What a journey, and it's amazing how I think every single person um, has a teacher that has impacted their life in one way or another. Some hopefully most of the time positive, like this teacher. Unfortunately, sometimes negative. But yeah, Chicago is a city that I would love to visit. The museums there I'd love to see. Um, I understand your love of architecture and skyscrapers. I was in Chicago. Oh, not Chicago. Sorry, I was in Detroit, and everyone goes, "Why are you going to Detroit?" We had some friends there, but again, I stopped in the street, and I'm just like this building captivated me. The aged copper roof and the
Mhm.
gothic spire and all this, and I'm just looking at it, and this local guy, I won't use the language that he used, but he's like, "Why are you looking at that?" And I've just gone, "It's a beautiful building." And then he stopped, he looked at it, and he goes, "If you like that, go down 3 blocks, turn right, go to the old bank. They've got a restaurant downstairs in the old vault. It's all in the style that it was built back in the 30s, I think it was."
Mhm.
And so for me, just stopping, looking at this building, this guy has gone, "What's this crazy white guy doing?" And he's just gone, go down and have a look, and there it is. So
So a bit
I,
of Art Deco style, maybe, or
yeah,
some sort of Art
yeah,
Deco.
probably it was like that blend, that cross between Art Deco and Art Nouveau, where it's just that
Mhm.
real mix of just amazing detail and shapes, and just a combination of materials that just you couldn't. I don't think you could ever do now unless you had billions and billions of dollars. So
Yeah, but as you say, it comes back to the shift in perspective, right?
yep,
We are we often quite we get comfy with our surroundings, our environment, and I believe, I personally believe, I apply that to my life. I try to. I believe it's important to actually shift the post every now and then. So to travel, discover new cultures, to learn new skills, to make yourself uncomfortable, because you will really surprise yourself. I was actually talking to a friend recently and explaining to them how I picked up swimming. I'm nowhere near good at it, but I realized I can't really swim properly. And, had you told me this a couple of years ago, that I would go swimming before school, before work, for half an hour, uh, I would have told you, but no, you're crazy. I am never, ever doing this. I am the last person to jump in a pool in the morning, in the dark. There's no way, no chance I'm going to do that ever. But you know what? You can't say never. And in
yeah,
fact, you shouldn't say never. You should actually, the things that you say you will never do, you need to challenge yourself to try them. And it's
absolutely.
hard. It's hard, but it's the best way to actually confront your prejudices, confront your, I don't know, your preconceived ideas on everything that surrounds you, is to actually push those boundaries and smash them, and then find out for yourself. And I think that's what we usually, essentially, that's what we do in design as well, because the majority of us design teachers, it's a dynamic subject, so we constantly have to kind of evolve and challenge ourselves to learn new skills, new software, new skills, new ways of delivering content. So I think it's not something that's totally new to design teachers, but it's good to remind ourselves that what you experience the world from your point of view and your perspective, and don't ever think that that's the only way of seeing the world. Always make sure to kind of try and see the world from other perspectives and challenge yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that's one thing I think in general, I think society's starting to lose that ability to see other people's perspective, not agree with it. There's lots of things that people say that colleagues that we disagree with, but we can still go, okay, well, let's look at it from there. And when we take it into design, it's like, no, I was trying to explain to my students we're doing human centered design, so designing with empathy, and I'm saying, like, try and put yourself in their shoes. What do you mean? I said, well, think about what they can or can't do, and you try and design to suit that, and to try. And you could see they were, even just to grasp the concept, they were struggling with. So
Mm.
do you find when you bring a perspective that's completely out of their realm of experience, that they really struggle to comprehend?
I do feel like the influence of algorithms in social media is greatly damaging critical thinking.
Yep.
I feel like, your points of views are being reinforced and regurgitated to you over and over and over again. And obviously the consequences of that is that, especially for young people, they're not necessarily being exposed to um, other points of view, and they are not necessarily familiar. Well, I've noticed that personally. I've noticed that critical thinking is not a skill that is very strong at the moment in young people. They don't really understand. Well, at least I know my students.
Yeah.
I have to explain that, for example, to write an essay about art and design, it's important to try, as you said, to try to put yourself in on the other side, and to try to actually see the problem from the other side and from another angle, and then debate the ideas and come to a conclusion. And so that critical thinking is so important for society. And what's happening now, I feel like, is a radicalization of a polarization of opinions, but not necessarily conducting to healthy debate. The capacity to debate ideas is being
Yeah,
lost.
I would have to absolutely agree with you there. The ability to have a strong discussion, a debate, and like a very robust debate where I'm disagreeing with you and I'm giving you all my points of views. You're disagreeing with me, but we can still talk and we can still be polite and respectful, and then at the end of it just go, hey, let's agree to disagree, but at least we can take in someone else's viewpoint. And it might, like you said, we're talking about critical thinking, it challenges our thinking to make sure that we are firm in our beliefs on whatever topic that may be.
That's right. Yeah. So how do we do this?
Oof.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge, but I do feel like the role of social media is huge in that regard. And I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't have the answer.
No, I don't look. Honestly, I don't think anyone does. And we, we've seen the stories and the documentaries that have come out by, like that social network. Now, I've not watched it in its entirety, but there were the developers of the social media platforms won't let their children or families use them, and well, if they're not allowing their loved ones to use a product, why are we allowing it
Mm.
on the open market? I mean, if we designed a product that was unsafe for society, it wouldn't be allowed. It wouldn't be allowed out
No,
there. You've worked in automotive design, and there would have been
that's right.
tremendous rules and regulations,
Standards, yeah,
down to even the stitching that had to be
that's right.
completed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so how do we create some sort of code of conduct and a set of rules for social media? I mean, how do we lift the game basically? I am hopeful that there's going to be more platforms that offer interesting content, and I was actually downloading an app yesterday that's about making your brain work in terms it assesses the speed of your brain, and then how you
okay,
can juggle multitask. I can't remember the name of that app, but it's interesting, and the way they sold it was stop the doom scrolling,
yep, I've
because
seen.
that's become an expression, right? That you doom scroll, and you become not a machine, but not a not intelligent one.
Yeah,
And how do you stop that and actually reflect and think, no, what am I doing is not adding any value to my life. So I think I can see that's emerging, those apps that are actually trying to feed you some more interesting content, and I think it's a good thing. People are starting to realize that the content, especially young people, are being fed these days isn't high quality. It's very low quality, especially actually now that I work in a girls' school. I feel like girls are especially being targeted with really dull, uninteresting, and uninspiring content that drags them down.
yeah.
And
I was going to
yeah.
say that. Like now, you've worked you've worked in both co-ed and now a single sex girls' school. I've not worked in a girls' school. I've worked in plenty of boys' schools, but it's how do you find that it drags them down? Does it reduce their expectations on themselves,
Mm-hmm.
or
Yep.
do they just go, well, no, I can't do that because I'm not X, Y, or Z, or oh, they're doing that because they've got that, So does it? How? Because I know that within a classroom, just regular like let's say a project. If I don't expect much from the students, then they're not going to produce much. But if I put a higher expectation on them, 9 times out of 10 they're gonna hit that. So are
That's
you
right.
finding that low expectation and that low value media that they consume translate or goes into their learning as well? It brings their level of learning or their their value on themselves down in the classroom.
I believe it does create a precedent, and I do believe girls particularly are being fed low quality content from a really really young age. I mean, there's been lots of studies on that, showing that girls are historically being told to be pretty and to take care of their looks more than their brains. I am lucky to be in a school that really puts the emphasis on women's self-determination and leadership, etc. So everything, all the teaching that we do across the school is really helping those girls, catch get the best out of their education, and hopefully go into brilliant careers in whichever field they may choose. But I do believe that outside of that bubble, I think, well, not that bubble, but outside of school, you, as I said, through social media, girls are being exposed to really really poor quality sexualized content, and I think it's really damaging. And yesterday, actually, I was talking to some of the year 10 girls in a pastoral session, and again, it comes back to critical thinking, talking to those girls and telling them, question what you are being fed from the get-go. Question the content. Why are you being fed ad over ad over ad about makeup, about nails, about how you should look, or how to get the attention of a boy, or question that content and reject it. And I think we just need to discuss this as a society more. And I think maybe at a government level there should be regulations on what is being fed to girls specifically, because I don't believe, well, actually boys are getting the content is getting worse for boys as well.
Yes, yeah, I have to agree
Boys are
with that.
getting targeted. Yeah, boys are getting targeted as well, in terms of, because it's a huge market, obviously, in terms of makeup and your skin and blah and blah, and I think it's really dragging those kids down.
Yeah,
So
it's taking away from the person, who they are, and what they strive to be, and forcing them into something that they think they should be. So, I know that, currently, and rightly so, there's a massive push for, STEM education and STEM jobs for young women, in school and in the workforce, which is desperately needed. But for so long, it was like, no, that's a boy's job. No, you need to do this. You just need to be the receptionist or the nurse, or whatever it may have been at that time. But it seems, and from what you're saying, is that constant drip feeding, and it's not so obvious. It's just that little drip, drip, drip
that's
that
right.
that wears these people down, that wears these young women down
Mhm.
to not achieve and not push past what they think they can do.
Mm. Yeah, it's a conditioning, and it is, as you said, it's by repeating the same storyline about being pretty, being this and this and this, instead of feeding them some interesting questions about rocket launch, or
Yeah,
I don't know, whatever, the life of the secret life of insects, or biomimicry, or whatever you can think of that is being fed to boys.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
much more.
I think we need to seriously, and I think people are, and we're looking at that, and I think we as design educators, and we talk about critical thinking and designing for people. Like, it's one way to start to get our students to think through, and like you said earlier, to critically think through what they're given, and to challenge that thought, because I know in so many schools the students just want, what do I need to do to get the A grade, or the
Hmm.
high level grade, or whatever it is. So they don't want to actually challenge. They don't want to think through it. They just want to go, you give me what I need so I can give it back to you to get the A. So
That's
do you
right.
think do you think we need to look at the way assessment is done, or the reasoning for, and like trying to teach these young men and women the reasoning why they're at school, and it's not just to regurgitate information, but it's to get that skill of learning.
Yes, I think the process of learning is the most important thing to learn in schools. It's to learn to learn. That's
Yeah,
important. It's not to learn stuff and retain facts and memorize everything. It's to learn, get the taste of self-development, self-enrichment, lifelong learning, and curiosity, critical thinking, divergent thinking. I think in design subjects we're very, very well placed I had not actually realized how well placed we are until I had to teach a different project, a different subject, sorry, and then I realized I can do this easy. It's it's project based learning.
Yep.
And I did really, really well. I was really in my element. And I did recognize that as design teachers, we really have a huge role that we could play potentially in the future and put design more at the center. I'm not saying that other subjects are not important, of course. All subjects are important, but I do believe that the process that we have to get students to learn is really different to most other subjects at the moment, and it's really about failing, resilience, finding the information for yourself, planning the project and starting the project, and aiming for completion with a deadline inside. And I think the way we do things in design and technology is really unique and is really different. And I do believe that with the rise of AI, which makes some of our assessments, and I'm not really talking about design here, I'm talking about other subjects, irrelevant.
Yeah, I would agree.
Because this is going to have to change, because with AI, with a one-line command, spits out the entire assessment task or assignment. So there is no relevance of assessing in a traditional way anymore in many cases. And that's when our way of teaching comes in. And I do believe that the future, that's my personal vision, but I do believe the future of education is going to have to be a lot more like what we do in design, project-based learning and multidisciplinary project-based learning, and human-centered as well. So that will create smart people.
Yeah, and allowing that environment to fail, because so many people think failure is a bad thing, but in design, failure is fantastic.
Absolutely, yes.
Because when something doesn't work properly,
yeah,
we can fix it.
yeah.
I know when I'm assessing, and yes, I have to give a grade, and I look at sort of grading and assessing almost differently. But when I'm assessing the students, they give a project, and before I give them their mark back, I ask them 3 questions, especially the younger students. And it's like, did you think you could do this before you started? No, I didn't. Are you pleased? Are you are you excited to take it home to show your parent or caregiver or whoever it is? Oh yeah. If I made you start this project right now all over again, could you do it better? Yeah, I could. Then you have succeeded tremendously, because you didn't think you could do it, so you've accomplished something. You are proud of the work that you've done, but more importantly, you've learned and you know how to improve for next time you do it. And they look at me and with this sense of, oh, so I don't have to just worry about A, B, or C. I said, no, don't worry about that at all. I have to give you that because that's part of the rules, and that's school, and school sucks, and don't worry about that. But it's like you trying to turn it back to the student to go, you have done well, you have achieved, you have learnt something, you've gained some sort of skill or knowledge, or even forget skills or knowledge, but just esteem that they've achieved something.
That's right.
So they've got that confidence in themselves.
Yes, and you can also, as a design teacher, put the emphasis on the process. So if you put more emphasis on the process and the documentation of the prototyping process and the designing process, the way to get there is actually much more important than the end result, because as we know, the end result is never the last answer. There's always going to be a product that's better. There's always going to be something better that comes up on the market the next day and the next day and the following day and the following day and the following day. So that's completely, the result is actually irrelevant.
Yes.
What is really relevant in design and technology is as you said, learning the skills by yourself, learning those little bits of skills that you put together back to back, and that reflective process. And this is why our subject is awesome. It's because it is learning to fail. It is learning that failure is actual progress and self-improvement. It is teaching kids to learn independently, to find the answers, to fail. But it's cool because you've tried. Because if you don't fail, that means you haven't tried hard enough, right? It's like
Yeah,
I don't know.
you haven't
It's like
challenged
skiing,
yourself.
and you say if you don't fall, you're learning to ski, and you never fall. Well, you're never gonna get better at it. It's the same for design, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's such a cool subject and it teaches so much to the kids. It's because it gives them skills for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for their well-being, for their mental health. I was actually talking about this in another interview, but it gives them skills for survival skills, because you're gonna have stuff that happens to you in your life that puts you straight down to the ground, and you have to get back up. And a subject like design and technology teaches you to fail over and over and over again. It's very hard. It's a very hard subject, actually.
Yeah.
In many ways, it's a really difficult subject, and I think I find often my students realize that, whoa, they didn't sign up for this. They're like, yeah, I'm gonna do design tech because it's an easy subject. I'll get good marks.
Yeah.
And then I tell them, yeah, you will get good marks, but not for the reasons you think. You will get good marks if you fail as much as possible, and I can see that you've gotten back up on your feet and tried another way. And
Exactly.
yeah, it's a really interesting subject.
So part of failing is going through the process of prototyping. Now, I've thrown a few things up on LinkedIn and I've shown some models, and I love getting the kids to prototype and, especially lo-fi stuff, getting some cardboard, just putting it together, or a really quick 3D print of something, maybe a scale model of it. How do you, and I've seen one of your great demonstrations of prototyping to your students. So how do you go about the process of prototyping? Like what's your pattern? Like, do you just go, okay, I'm just going to go bang straight in and make it, or do you go, okay, I'm going to sketch and draw, or do you go get your cardboard and just mock things up? Like, what's your process behind showing your students your design process and your critical thinking process of the problem that you're trying to solve?
I'm very open-minded regarding the way to get there. I actually advise my students to use different ways, and you might need at some stage to cardboard prototype, or you might need to learn a piece of software, or you might have to learn to draw in perspective or do an orthographic view. I'm really open. I don't believe there's one way of starting a project successfully. I do believe it depends on your student's personality. That's the reason why often when I run my projects, I tend to digress a little bit. I kind of get the feel for who's in my class and
Yep.
their personalities, and I observe them. I spend probably the first couple of weeks of observing my students, and I get them to do a wide variety of activities. That could be for junior students, that could be folding paper to make a shape, or it could be drawing for certain students who enjoy drawing. or it could be watching a video tutorial online and reproducing it. And it could be, again, if they are comfy with their iPad, or if they are comfy with their laptops, or if they want to take photographs of a shape with their phones, I allow that, because I do believe if you want to teach a creative subject like ours successfully, you need to recognize that your students have diverse brains and diverse ways of being creative. So I try, especially with the junior students, I try to encourage testing and prototyping, but I leave them open to experimenting the way they want to do it. I'm here, I consider more myself as the troubleshooter, the mentor in the classroom, and I provide them with the expertise and the experience to get there, so that they don't lose the motivation. But I also try, I must say, before I get into the actual curriculum project, I try to launch a mini project that is usually skills based, to acquire the skills before, because I think to me the skills in design and technology, having a skill set that students are quite comfortable with, will help them not give up in years, in future years. And I think a lot of teachers are like that. I mean, I'm by no means different, but so I usually launch a mini micro project. For example, my current year 9 students, we're doing bookends, and each side of the bookend needs to tell a story. So from the start to the end, so from left to right, the 2 bookends will tell a story. They're going to learn Illustrator, but as a way to make learning Adobe Illustrator fun, I ask them to create their branding and their logo that they hopefully will keep for many, many years. So I got them to sketch by hand and then scan their drawings, learn Illustrator this way. And I really try to personalize my teaching. So I really go one-on-one, and I go to each student, and I really try to get the best of them, get really to the essence of who they are. And that actually allows me to see what their hobbies might be, or what. So I think you need to keep it fun, and I usually leave the boring stuff for relief lessons. if I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that, but I dump the boring stuff on no, I'm not doing that, but I tend to use the writing your design brief, or going through criterion A, B, and C for maybe as extension tasks when some students have finished their drawings and the creative process. So I really try to keep students motivated from the get-go. For me, the first lesson is super important. So is the second and the third. The first 3 lessons should really be something exciting, some fun little project that's really gonna keep them going, because we all know that learning a new skill is really hard, and the last thing that you want to do is have them bored at the end of the first lesson with some theoretical blah.
Yeah,
So
I'm very similar with that. I motor through the. It's important, but it's not critical. But I motor through it to get to, especially what the kids consider fun, but also what I consider fun is, and getting in there to the making, because they want to create, they want to touch stuff, they want to move around, they want to express their ideas in that certain way. So I just like, here, let's get this done. So you learn the skills, bam, let's get into making. If you do it
that's
quickly,
right.
we can really have some fun. So
Yeah.
it's we do have one of those joyous subjects that most kids love, and they want to keep coming back. So
Yes.
I mean, I love it, and by the sounds of it, we're pretty similar in how we do things. And I mean, I know from my industry, so I'm I mentioned before we started recording. So I'm a toolmaker by trade, so a precision metal machinist. And where I was taught, the trade that I did and the factory that I worked in, we did stuff from concept to development. So we had to go through the whole
Mm.
design
Yeah.
process and actually work out how to do it. And we failed tremendously in the start, but it improved. And then and I had the opportunity to work on some amazing machinery and equipment, and I learnt, and I think that's probably why, or what, one of the things that helps me be a successful teacher.
There is something actually that we talked about before you started recording, which I would like to talk about. It's the idea that you really don't need much to learn something new.
No.
I really believe in micro opportunities. So it could be a new material for your 3D printer. It could be a new backdrop, like a curtain that allows you with your phone to put a little prototype on a table and take really good shots of it. It could be learning to use a compass for students that allows you to create geometry. It could be folding a piece of fabric, sort of origami style, to create a cool bag design. You need to tap into those micro skills that you have. And it actually shows kids that you really don't need much to be creative and to be an innovator.
No.
And you don't need all the fancy well, you do need the fancy equipment, but you
Not to
it's not
start
that
with.
it's not that important. If you can be creative with just pen and paper, and that's where you should start, including folding the piece of paper into a rigid structure, etc., and creating small architecture out of paper, then you are capable of anything. And once you get the cool stuff to play with, all the toys, the CNC, the laser cutting, the water jet cutting, the whatever, you name it, imagine it's endless. The possibilities are endless, but you need to start. And it's my point of view and my vision as a teacher. You need to get the kids to understand that, hey, you can create with what you have, with what we have in this classroom. And, it could be just a piece of paper, a couple of colors, and, not much at all. And
Yeah.
you yourself can create stuff.
Well, being someone who loves architecture as well, I remember watching a documentary years ago with Frank Gehry, and he, has made some of the most
Yes.
abstract buildings in around the world. And his process for the start of some of it was just getting A4 paper
Yeah.
or A3 paper, scrunching it, not like basically closing his eyes, scrunching it up and throwing it on the floor to see how it landed.
Mm-hmm.
And that was often the start of his process, because his thinking was, if paper can do that, then I can manipulate another piece of material, a sheet metal, a foam, a plastic, whatever it might be for the outside. So if I can get one material to do that, then I can build my building, and
Totally.
we'll let the engineers sort out the rest.
Yeah.
Um, and
Yes.
that was his process, and that was one of his processes, I should say. So
Yes, well, actually, that video, well, maybe it's a similar video, but I often use the Frank Gehry's YouTube recording of his design. Well, he's directing the design of the Bilbao Museum with sheets of aluminium sheet or
yep,
something like that. And yeah, I mean, we're from, I mean, obviously a bit younger than Frank Gehry, but we both, I believe you and I studied. There was no computer at the time, right? So
no, that's right.
that's how we used to make models, right? We used to just take pieces of paper. We had nowhere near as many opportunities as kids have these days.
No,
And
no. The software that we have available, even the free software that the students have available to them. Oh, if I had that back, I learned how to use, I think it was AutoCAD 12, and that was back in. I'm aging myself here. This was back in 1993.
yeah.
Um, and I had to draw something up, and then I had to put it on a CNC machine, but I had to write all the G code myself.
Mm.
So I had to work out the trigonometry, I had to work out the X, Y, Z's, I had to do everything. It took me, let's say, I think the little project I did was, it was 30 seconds of machining time, but it took me about 5 hours to actually get
Mm.
the code and like just,
Yeah.
and now we can just go and it's done. So
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's, I mean, I was put off computers by the DOS system, right? It was like, I am never doing that. And I am never, like, never say never, right?
yep.
Going back to that, I am never working with those machines. And I am never making a remote control ever again. Was my technology teacher at the time. We did the soldering and the remote control that turns red, and I was like, what is that subject? That's awful. And what's that typing on the computer? I hated it. And here you go, 30 years down the line, trying to catch up with that knowledge now, learning electronics and
Oh, absolutely. Now, like we're talking about like a bit of technology, and I look, I am appreciative of your time, so I don't want to take advantage of that. But just while we're on the technology and we're talking creativity and prototyping, and you mentioned AI earlier, like generative AI earlier, do you think that's just another tool for our arsenal as a designer? So it's just something that we can draw upon. It's not going to be it's not going to end creativity, but it's going to be something that augments it or enhances creativity. And are you using it with your students?
yes, yes, and yes. I think we are on the same page, you and I, about this. I really think we need to embrace it. Well, anyway, we have no choice, so right. So we'd better embrace it for the good reasons,
Yep.
than try and ignore it and push it away when we know it's already here and it's already enhancing our lives tremendously. And especially for design and creativity, because we can be the masterminds, we can have the bigger vision, but the execution of it can be greatly helped by AI. You can think about, in the future, in just I mean, it's already starting. You could ask a chat GPT for design or for architecture. Hey, I want to build a bridge that's got these parameters, this shape, this plan, for this location, considering those factors and made of this material. Spit me out 10 designs for this bridge, and it will do it for you. And what the role of humans will be to check for errors, probably at the start, and to be the masterminds of the initiative, to be the project managers and the visionaries of the ideas, the people who control the AI. But I do believe that all that calculation, designing work is increasingly done by AI. I mean, you can already, I've done my little experiments, nowhere near as much as you have, but I have, because I don't want to spread myself too thin at the moment, but I have experimented with, landscape design, or give me a picture of a landscape that's got these plants and, with this type of orientation, etc. And it just gives you a couple of pictures and you think, wow, I had not thought of that. And this in turn inspires me to include those plants or that design, or it's kind of a communication. I find that fascinating, because it's like having a friend, another expert in front of you that has another point of view or has another other ideas that you may not have thought about, and you can bounce off that. One example is one of my students, going back to that year 9 class. They are currently designing their own logo, so their own brand and their own logo as a way to learn Adobe Illustrator. I go
Yeah.
to a girl and I have a look at her work on the computer and say, wow, this is pretty cool. Those 3 logos are so different and yet so great. Where did you get the idea? And she said, oh, I just put it into design a logo app or something like that. It
Yeah.
just came up with the idea, and now I'm just modifying it to make it more what I want and with my colors. So already graphic design, the kids are way ahead of us. They're using AI for graphic design, for mood boards, composition, for their assignments, for
Yeah.
background research on art and design. So, it's happening. Do we embrace it? Yes, definitely. We embrace it and we surf that wave, and we are going to be able to do a lot more and achieve things a lot better and a lot quicker thanks to AI. That's my hope,
Yeah.
and I'm pretty convinced of it.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'm very, yeah, we're very much on the same page when it comes to that. It's like, let's use this as a tool to, because I know a lot of the time where I've used it, it's a tool to go, okay, yeah, I want this, and I'm using my words and my thoughts to give it a prompt to give it the direction that I want it to go in. And often, especially very early on, it would give me something that was absolutely terrible, but it would help me formulate what I wanted by showing me, and then there's, like when we do concept sketching with the students, it's like, don't ever scribble anything out because you might need just a section of that to incorporate into your final
Yeah,
designs.
that's right.
So yeah, the opportunities are endless, and I guess as long as we show them that it's not there to replace, but to help as a tool, like we would, any other tool like a 3D printer, a laser cutter, or whatever it might be, that it's there to help enhance our design work.
You know what? I believe they will teach us. They already are teaching us. I'm really amazed at the kids' capacity to find those tools, those
Yeah,
AI tools, and already use them. And we know
yeah,
they use them for the wrong reasons as well. But in design, I'm finding that they use them in such creative and clever ways that I'm blown away really by the capacity of my students to use AI to produce really high quality creative stuff and enhance their creativity and bounce back, and they really use it as a tool. I have not found so far any problem with using AI. Not that I have really had the time to integrate that to my teaching anyway,
yeah,
but I have found that they start using it in their assessments. They start using it to research, to produce, or to enhance the writing of their ideas,
yeah,
uh, or to produce graphic design work. So they are way ahead of the game,
yeah.
and we
And
just
we
need to
we
embrace it.
And it sounds like you and I, and I'm sure many other teachers are creating a safe environment, an open environment, to allow them to use it in a way that they're not trying to hide it. It's like, oh yeah, no, miss, I used this, or sir, I just used that one. That's fine. Now I'm tweaking it and making it mine. This was the start, and now I'm making it mine. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, you can only encourage them to do so. I
yeah,
encourage my students to use their intelligence to find those tools and use them to their advantage, because I know that ultimately the work is theirs. They will still have, and that comes back to what we were saying when our subject, which is project-based learning. is going to be, I think, mainstream, and we're going to have to teach other subjects how to do it, because they can't hide. They still have to produce something and to do the work. So AI can help them, but it's not going to, at this stage, launch the prototyping process by itself. They still have to produce drawings and produce, be the creative minds behind AI to produce stuff and to produce those pictures, those visuals, those 3Ds, the CAD. If it's only AI at the moment, the quality is quite poor. So you need to actually work with them and trust them and discuss, and it's a conversation you can have with them about the fact that, yes, definitely use those tools, but also learn the skills and work with AI. Don't trust AI completely for doing the work and replacing you. But ultimately, I believe in 10 years' time, we'll all be out of our jobs anyway. I mean, we'll have a universal government payment, like what they are trialing in many countries.
Yes.
And I really believe there will be no point, because robots will be everywhere. They're already starting to be in our homes with, the vacuum robot or the smart fridge, or everything is going to be more and more smart anyway. But it'll be true for your work as well. With your phone now, you have your personal, you have every one of us has a personal assistant in their hands.
Exactly.
I mean, so a lot of jobs are going to be obsolete soon.
Yeah.
And it's going to be very, very difficult to justify paying people to do work that can be done so much faster and so much better by AI anyway. So I think we're shifting, and we're only at the very beginning of it, but I don't think people realize how fast it's going to go and how irreversible, a point of no return it's going to be, when we're never going back to the ways, to our ways.
No,
So
exactly.
I do believe, sorry to interrupt you.
No. No, I was going to say the next 5 or 10 years are going to be very, very interesting. So that's for sure. So
creativity will be important, and
critical thinking.
critical thinking and creativity and good values as well.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. The importance of being human. So, and I think that's really going to come to the forefront. But
Yes.
Megan, we've had such a great conversation. And just before we finish up, because it is a school night, I've just got a few last questions, just so that our listeners can get to know a little bit more about you, just a little bit more. Just one of those little personal things. So the first one is, what's your favorite drink?
My favorite
Drink?
drink. Ooh, it's cognac, probably.
A nice
Cognac is
cognac?
my favorite drink. Yes, a good French cognac. Rémy Martin is, and XO if possible, so extra old.
Yeah.
But they're very expensive.
Yes. A nice Hennessy is very expensive. So.
Yes, the cognac. Yes.
Absolutely. Now, we've talked about a whole range of things tonight, but what's a challenge that you would like to put out there to people listening?
Fight your demons. Fight your demons. If I could go into the swimming pool before work and make it a habit, trust me, you can do anything. It's incredible, but you continue challenging yourself to get to know yourself.
That's
and
excellent.
delve deeper.
That's excellent. Now, do you have a quote or a mantra that's helped you, or that you've held on to to get you through either certain things, or just something that's guided you through your life so far?
Professionally, I would say just do it is is my motto. It's become a real motto for me. Just do it. It doesn't matter if you don't do things perfectly. No one is perfect. And let people judge you, and it doesn't matter. Be happy, just do what you want to do, even if it's a tiny, tiny little thing each day. Just do it.
Absolutely. Now, it wouldn't be the Tattoo Teacher podcast without asking you, do you have a tattoo?
I do have a tattoo, yes.
No.
I'm obsessed with insects.
Okay.
And reptiles particularly fascinate me, so I do have a little gecko on my shoulder. Yeah.
Fantastic. And last but certainly not least, if people want to connect with you or find more about what you've done or what you're doing, where's the best place to look?
Probably LinkedIn would
Yep.
be the best place. I enjoy blogging, so I use LinkedIn as a way to put down my thoughts and put them out there to connect with people. So LinkedIn would be the best way.
Well, and that's how we connected. So I'm so glad you have done that. So we've both. I know I've learned a lot from you. So that's
And I've learned a lot from you, Phil. Thank you so much.
Oh, look, I appreciate it. As long as I'm here. One of my things now, I've been teaching a long time now. So if I can help teachers anywhere, whether they're younger or older or more experienced or less, if I can help someone just help their students, then yeah, I'm all for it. So it's been fantastic connecting with you. I appreciate your time so much, and thank you for we've had an amazing conversation. We've gone down some roads that I didn't think we would, but what an amazing conversation. So Megan, thank you so much for your time. I truly appreciate it. You have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk again real soon.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Thank you so much for listening to the Tattoo Teacher podcast. I hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it insightful. If you like what you heard, it would mean so much to me if you could either like, follow, and subscribe to whatever platform you are listening on. The music was by DJ Fruit Salad. Thanks again for listening. Stay cool. Be blessed.